former EastEnders actress Natalie Cassidy has shared that she suffered a painful injury while preparing for the soap's 40th anniversary scenes. Cassidy first appeared as Sonia Fowler back in 1993. After taking short breaks in 2007 and 2011, she returned full-time in 2014. She eventually exited the show 2 months after the milestone episodes, which featured Sonia giving birth to baby Julia amid the chaos of the Queen Vic's collapse. Speaking on Katherine Ryan's What's My Age Again podcast, Cassidy revealed that she gave it everything during rehearsal, which unfortunately led to a fractured sternum. "I was pushing hard while acting out the birth scene, and because it was for EastEnders Live, the pressure was on," she recalled. "A few days before the live episode, I really threw myself into it, and my sternum actually popped. Not through the skin, but it moved out of place, and I just kept going." After visiting the hospital, she learned that her injury was similar to those seen in car crash victims. The doctor asked if I'd had my bones checked because the fracture was so unusual. He said, "That's something we usually see after a car accident. And you did it during acting," she said. "I now take supplements for osteoporosis because I worry about my bone strength." In September, Cassidy looked back on her decision to leave EastEnders and hinted that a return one day isn't impossible. "Leaving EastEnders has felt like a breath of fresh air. I feel free and genuinely content," she told Primer. "Albert Square will always mean a lot to me. I'd never rule out popping back for a short stint. Those moments are always special." Emotions reach breaking point in EastEnders this week as Nigel finally faces the devastating consequences of his actions, and the future of one of Walford's most beloved residents hangs in the balance. After reuniting with his old friend Phil Mitchell, who was still recovering from his own mental health struggles, Nigel found unexpected support at a time when he was at his lowest. When Phil learned that Nigel had been contemplating suicide, he stepped in, determined to help his friend get back on his feet and become his carer. It was a touching reminder of the deep loyalty that has always defined Phil's character, but their fragile sense of stability wouldn't last for long. Tensions soon rose when Nigel's wife Julie returned to Walford. Her reunion with Phil was far from smooth. The two clashed bitterly over how best to care for Nigel, each convinced they knew what was right for him. Their arguments exposed years of pain and guilt, but when it became clear that they both genuinely loved and wanted the best for Nigel, they agreed to set their differences aside. Before leaving town to visit his daughter Louise, Phil made Julie promise she would keep a close eye on Nigel. It was a heartfelt exchange, filled with hope that things might finally turn around. But despite Julie's best efforts, tragedy was about to strike. For months, Nigel and Julie had been dreaming of a once-in-a-lifetime trip to India, a chance to reconnect and rediscover a sense of peace. But financial struggles soon shattered that dream, forcing Nigel to make an agonizing decision to sell his most treasured possession, his beloved vintage car. Saying goodbye to it felt like letting go of a part of himself. Unable to face the reality of parting with it, Nigel secretly found the key Julie had hidden away and decided to take the car out for one last drive. But the decision would have devastating consequences. Disoriented and confused as he drove through the familiar streets of Walford, Nigel became distracted when Julie called him. In those few seconds of panic and confusion, his world changed forever. The car swerved, striking Jasmine Fisher, who had bravely shoved Gina Knight out of harm's way. In the horrifying aftermath, Julie tried desperately to protect her husband. She claimed she had been driving the car, hoping to shield Nigel from punishment. But her lie quickly began to unravel. When Nigel later found his shoes covered in Jasmine's blood, the truth came flooding back, and filled with guilt, he turned himself in to the police. In the days that followed, Nigel made peace with both Jasmine and Gina, grateful for their forgiveness. But the ordeal had taken its toll. His health had deteriorated, and with heartbreaking honesty, he told Julie that he was too unwell to travel to India after all. The dream that had once symbolized their hope was now out of reach. When Phil finally returned to Walford and discovered what had happened in his absence, his anger exploded. He blamed Julie for keeping the truth from him and for not protecting Nigel. But before things could spiral, Jack Branning intervened, reminding Phil that Julie had done everything she could under impossible circumstances. Realizing how harsh he'd been, Phil softened and vowed to help, calling on his trusted solicitor, Richie Scott, to represent Nigel and fight to keep him out of prison. Nigel's fate now rests in the hands of the court. After undergoing a full medical and psychological assessment, he's painfully aware that the outcome may not be in his favor. The prospect of a prison sentence looms over him like a shadow. To make matters worse, on the morning of his hearing, Julie discovers she's taken Nigel's lucky tie to the dry cleaners, a small but cruel twist that leaves them both shaken. It's as if fate itself is working against them. Overwhelmed and frightened, Nigel wanders to Arthur's bench, the place where he has always gone for peace and reflection. Julie finds him there, sitting in silence, and joins him. What follows is a tender, emotional conversation between two people bound by love, regret, and acceptance. They reminisce about the life they've shared and the mistakes they've made, both painfully aware that this could be their last moment together for a long time. As the time comes for Nigel to face the judge, the weight of his choices hangs heavy in the air. Julie holds his hand, unable to stop the tears as he's led into the courtroom. Will the court show mercy and allow Nigel a chance at redemption, or will he be forced to pay the ultimate price for his tragic mistake? Either way, life in Walford will never be the same again. Tensions explode in EastEnders this week as police descend on Albert Square and make a shocking arrest. The drama unfolds when the aftermath of Kojo's ordeal sends ripples through the community. With emotions running high and alliances fracturing, chaos erupts, and by the end of the night, one man is in handcuffs. Residents gather in panic as police swarm the square, demanding answers about who's responsible for what happened to Kojo. George wastes no time blaming Harry, furious that his vulnerable brother was caught up in danger. At the hospital, George and Teddy clash in a heated confrontation. George is certain Harry's to blame for dragging Kojo into the mess, and tempers boil over as the brothers turn on each other. Meanwhile, Nicola races in, terrified about what's happened to Harry. She's desperate to protect her son, not only from the police, but from whatever fallout may come if the truth gets out. Sitting by Harry's bedside, she and Teddy promise to keep him safe. But Harry's visibly shaken, confessing he fears Oki will pin everything on him, or worse, come after him again. When police attempt to question Kojo, he shuts down completely, repeating only, "No comment." His silence leaves both George and investigators frustrated and desperate for answers. George pleads with Kojo to open up, but he's too overwhelmed to speak. Nicola steps in, begging George not to tell the police about Harry's role in what happened, but George is torn. He wants to protect his family, yet can't ignore what Harry's actions have caused. Unable to hold back, George confronts Harry, furious but clearly broken. Harry insists he only wanted to protect Kojo, but George demands honesty, saying no one else should ever be exploited the way Kojo was. Then comes the bombshell. Harry confesses to police that Ravi was behind everything and names everyone involved. Across town, Ravi is already on edge. Meeting with Oki, he lashes out, saying things have spiraled out of control and he's tired of cleaning up Oki's chaos. Realizing the situation is crumbling, Ravi urges Priya to leave Walford with him, suggesting they flee to Ibiza. Priya, suspicious and confused, refuses, unaware he's secretly plotting to disappear. Ravi begins packing, ready to bolt before the police arrive. But just as he's about to escape, Priya walks in and spots the luggage. Before he can explain, police storm through the door. Ravi freezes as officers shout orders, pin him down, and slap the cuffs on. Priya stands speechless as Ravi is led away in shock. Ravi's plan to vanish ends before it begins. Now, with Ravi under arrest, Oki still at large, and Harry's confession threatening to destroy multiple families, Walford is thrown into chaos once again. George is left with an impossible choice. Should he protect the people he loves, or finally tell the truth? Meanwhile, Nicola and Teddy scramble to keep Harry safe, but it might already be too late. And as Ravi sits behind bars, one burning question remains: who will fall next? EastEnders airs Mondays to Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. on BBC One and BBC iPlayer.